We shouldn't have to acknowledge that trauma because, like, they're paid to be there. We live in these places. Like, police officers have historically not been held accountable because they protect and serve the rich, and then they just harass and take up space in poor communities. I don't see any type of big shift happening with the one term because it's like a cultural thing.
Right.
So how do we change that? And I think that's too much of a job for one person to sit here and say, well, if I win, I'm gonna switch culture. But how do we start to build towards changing that culture? And what does that conversation look like on a national scale?
I think part of the issue, stepping back, is the responsibility of law enforcement to make sure there is consequence and accountability for crime, or is the responsibility of law enforcement to ensure public safety?
Well, then that makes me ask you the question of how do you define justice?
Well, but then there's that, and there is that point. But the reason I go to public safety versus consequence and accountability for crime is that if the goal is public safety, then we have to necessarily get into, well, what creates safe communities? And what creates safe communities is recognizing that undiagnosed and untreated trauma among children who are growing up in high violence communities or in poverty, because by the way, poverty is trauma inducing.
Poverty